When I was a child, I used to love playing London Bridge is Falling Down. Actually, there have been three London bridges. The original was built in 1209 and was demolished in 1831 after the second bridge was completed. The second bridge was purchased and shipped to Havasu City, Arizona, where it still is today. This is the bridge that Dickens knew and walked back and forth across countless times. I'm standing here on London Bridge, and it is not falling down, not yet. This is the third London Bridge. London Bridge has been here since 1973, so the third bridge has lasted 50 years so far. The London Bridge on which I'm standing is not to be confused with Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge is the one directly behind me here. And if you can see the green metal bridge across the way, that is the bridge where Amy Dorrit met with Arthur Clennam when she wanted to discuss problems with him before she went back over to the Marshalsea prison, which is in this direction, which is what we're going to do next. This is the George Inn. It's the oldest surviving coaching inn in London, and it is also a place where Charles Dickens dined. And Charles Dickens used the George Inn in his novel Little Dorrit. Charles Dickens would spend a lot of time at this inn when he was visiting his family in the Marshalsea prison a couple blocks from here. In Little Dorrit, this is the inn in which your brother Tip writes a letter to Arthur Clennam asking for a loan and has Amy's friend Maggie deliver it. Maggie is supposed to deliver the letter in secret, but Arthur happens to be with Amy at the time. Amy is embarrassed that her ungrateful family asks her friend Arthur to keep bailing them out of debt. Of course, Arthur has no idea that Amy is in love with him. That's a secret that is revealed to him at the end of the novel, and they are happily married. I'm standing here against the south wall of the Marshalsea prison. This wall you see here is the only part of the prison that is left. The Marshalsea was the infamous debtors' prison, so if you couldn't pay your debts, you were sent here to the Marshalsea. Now, Charles Dickens' father, John, he was imprisoned here exactly 200 years ago in the year 1824. This was after Charles started working in the blacking factory near present-day Charing Cross Station. So this south wall is original, and Dickens also used this in his novel Little Dorrit because Little Dorrit was born here at the Marshalsea. Her father was her father was the father of the Marshalsea, who got used to living here and pretty much ran the place. So Little Dorrit grew up here and spent most of her life here. If you just can imagine this narrow alleyway outside the prison was where people would have to use the bathroom, they would have to clean, they would just dump all their waste out in the alley from the upper prison cells. People were just living here. The debtors were living in this area, and now it's just a bunch of apartments in a courtyard. But Dickens described this as one of the filthiest, ugliest prisons to have to live inside. And fortunately, his family didn't live here too long before John got out of debt. But John, his father, was a big spender, of course, and couldn't really keep up with his payments. And so the Dickens family, the entire family, actually lived in this prison complex. And he describes Amy Dorrit as playing with the locksmith, the keeper of the locks. I spend time with him out in this little alleyway. This is St. George the Martyr Church in Southwark. In Dickens' novel Amy Dorrit, this is where Amy Dorrit and Arthur Clennam were married. And of course, Amy's life comes full circle because she was born in the Marshalsea. She was christened here at this church a block away, and she gets married here to Arthur Clennam at the end of the novel. So happy ending. Okay, behind me we see these bicycles. That was where Charles Dickens had a house and would stay in a little residence there while he was visiting his family in the Marshalsea prison.